Hello everybody and welcome to something that you haven't seen before. My name is Joker and today we're going to be trying something a little different. For a long time now I wanted to take an approach similar to Collider's Movie Talk, where they just talk about upcoming films and they just talk about movies in general, and today I thought we'd do that. So this is going to be a lot less editing and me just talking point to point about a certain film or a film franchise perhaps. In this case right now we're talking about the new Ghostbusters movie that was announced earlier this week and it blew my mind. So the cool thing is that this is a new Ghostbusters movie and it's coming out in the summer of 2020 and it's being directed by Jason Reitman, who is the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the first two films. So as a complete follow-up to the '89 film, this is something that everyone has wanted since that time. You know, Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2 were amazing movies and we always wanted to have a third one, or at least I always wanted to have a third one, and now that we're getting a direct sequel to it is just incredible. Nonetheless, still kept in the family because Jason Reitman is directing it. But earlier this week we got a look at a small teaser trailer. It was about 54 seconds. I'm not going to show the trailer because I don't want to get a copyright claim for it or anything like that, but I do want to say it's just the coolest way it sets up. It's a dark barn in the middle of nowhere. It kind of looks like a farmhouse, but so it slowly creeps up on it and you start getting some of the music from the original score of the first film, and it just feels so nostalgic and great. And then you get a little flashes and sounds of the proton packs turning on. You get some blue and red lights like flickering, and as it zooms into the barn you see this big object that's covered with like a rag or like a big tarp. You just like, you know what it is, but you don't want to say it, and then a gust of wind comes and kind of blows it up and you see the back of the car, the Ecto 1A, and it's just like, oh my god, this is a new Ghostbusters movie. Which, I mean, of course, you can know that when you hear the score because you're like, you know what that music is. The music in that film is so specific and so iconic to what it is. It's like the second you hear it, you're like, is that Ghostbusters? This is Ghostbusters. And then, of course, you hear the proton packs and you're like, okay, it's Ghostbusters. Then you see the car. That's the big wow moment. And you're like, what? Oh my god, new Ghostbusters. And then it says summer 2020. So you're like, okay, well, that's the original car, the original sound, the original music. What is this? And of course, Jason Reitman shares it on his Twitter, and it is official that this movie is coming out summer of 2020. Minds are blown. I'm excited. Another important thing to note here is that this is not a direct sequel to the 2016 Ghostbusters film that was directed by Paul Feig. While that movie had some issues and it doesn't really look like that's getting a sequel, I think fans are a lot happier that we're getting a direct sequel to the original franchise. As a matter of fact, they've made it say that if it was like universe-based, like it is with Marvel and DC movies, that this is not in the same universe as the 2016 reboot. It is with the original, so all of the original stuff that we saw in the first two films is where this movie is going to carry on towards. Now, I'm not saying, you know, like, you should hate on the 2016 reboot. I personally didn't like it, but it wasn't because it was an all-female cast or anything. It just didn't really feel like Ghostbusters, and Dan Aykroyd made some points like that too. He said he enjoyed the film, but he said it would have done them they would have done a much better job had they, you know, listened to their ideas, some of the ideas they had and some of the ideas for budgeting the film, because the film had quite a huge budget, but it just missed the mark completely. There was a lot of stuff in there that was unnecessary. The acting was great, you know, the jokes are fun. I felt that the original Ghostbusters cameos that happened were kind of like downplayed and a little rough. Like some of them, like Bill Murray's character was like a skeptic and he didn't believe in ghosts. That's not who he is. He is one of the biggest believers of ghosts, and you see that in the first two Ghostbusters films. So for him to play something that's the complete opposite, I'm sure he wanted to do, but as a fan, it's just like, I don't see that happening. I can't see that working out here. But now that that movie has had its time, and now that we're actually getting a true sequel to the original two, that's everything I needed. That small trailer was everything I needed to see and more, and I'm happy with it. I'm excited to get a full trailer. I don't know when that's going to be, probably toward the end of this year. Maybe if that, considering it comes out in the summer of 2020. But I think everything coming from that is going to be great. Apparently the writing is perfect, and apparently it made them cry when they read the end of the script because it's so emotional and funny. So that's something to look forward to, because it's supposed to be like a passing of the torch, you know, because it's not just going to be centered around them. They're going to have some younger cast members that I'll get to here in a second. But overall, it's just really exciting to see how this movie is going to play out and where the timeline sits with it. Because this is supposed to take place in the 21st century. This is supposed to have that 30-year gap that happened. So like, what happens between those 30 years? How is it exactly going to play out? And to kind of add to it and make it more interesting, back in 2009, we had a Ghostbusters game that was released for, I think it was PlayStation 3, PC, and I think even the Wii, maybe Xbox, I'm not sure. But the script for that game was written by Dan Aykroyd and the late great Harold Ramis, along with a lot of other people, and that was supposed to be, in their words, the unofficial third entry to the Ghostbusters film franchise. And I was fine with that. That game is absolutely amazing. If you haven't played it yet, find a way. You can get it on Steam. It's really a joy to play. There's a lot of homage to the original films, and it just feels like it would be a third unofficial entry. And I was fine with that. And then when they announced the new 2016 movie, I was like, this is great. And then it came out and I was like, this isn't Ghostbusters, you know? So now that we have an official third entry coming in, I'm here for it. But of course, having it be a sequel to the original series, that makes you wonder, what about the cast? Are we getting the original cast back? And this is what I think is pretty cool. While they haven't necessarily confirmed that the original cast is returning, Dan Aykroyd kind of already let it slip that he is probably returning for it because, let me look at my notes here. So in November of 2018, Dan Aykroyd was on an interview called The Big Interview with Dan Rather, and he mentioned that they were working on a script for a new Ghostbusters movie that was apparently going to be really great, but no one took it seriously, you know, because they had been talking about writing this thing forever, and they had waited so long, and then, you know, Harold Ramis passed away, and they thought, well, there's no way we're going to do it now. And they pushed it off for so long because Dan Aykroyd said, out of respect, no, they're not going to do another movie if Bill Murray didn't want to, and Bill Murray wanted nothing to do with it. But now I feel that if Dan Aykroyd is going to help with this new movie and be in this new movie for some form of a cameo, if anyone can get Bill Murray to come back to this, it's going to be Dan Aykroyd. And he says that there's no way that Bill Murray can, there's no way he could deny the script. The script is apparently too much fun for him to just kind of give up, so there's no way he's actually going to just sit out and let this movie go by. So I think that's great. And beyond that, you know, Ernie Hudson is going to be involved just because, you know, he's the one that goes to all the conventions. He does all the promotional stuff for Ghostbusters. He loves that stuff, and he loves doing that stuff for the fans. So I think getting him back would not be the problem. Now, whether or not Sigourney Weaver, Annie Potts, and Rick Moranis are going to be coming back is beyond me. I would like to see them all make returns, but you know, it just depends on how the story is supposed to play out, because I know it's not supposed to be centered around the original cast, but just having them back is just a nice thing to have. Which actually brings me back to my point of the new cast. What is this going to consist of? So far, it sounds like they're casting for 4 teenagers, so they're wanting 2 boys and 2 girls, which is fine. You know, you get the mix in there. It doesn't have to be all guys. It doesn't have to be all girls. You know, having the mix in there, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And the way it sounds, they're saying it's like a passing of the torch. So obviously, this has to happen. And from rumors that I've heard, if that's exactly how they're going to play out, I think it's fine. And if you look at the teaser, how it says it's supposed to come up on this old barn that has the car in there just wrapped up, I'm thinking they're saying that it's going to be like the kids kind of come across the equipment, they kind of come upon it, and I think that's fine, you know, like that's something important, and it leaves a lot of questions to be answered. Now, if they're actually going to go ahead with a 30-year gap between 1989 and 2020, what happened between that time? Like after Ghostbusters 2, after they beat Vigo, was that the end of it? Is that just where it stops? Or is they going to keep going and then eventually they like retired? Or is there just straight a 30-year gap where there weren't any Ghostbusters, and then these teenagers apparently come across the equipment, and then through them they get taught the ways of how to do this from the original cast, or whoever comes back from the original cast? And I think that's a great idea. It kind of gives it a play, something like Stranger Things in a way. It just has that feel of it, you know, they just come across this equipment and all of a sudden we have to be the new Ghostbusters. I mean, I'm fine with that, you know, and if they're being taught by the original cast, it feels like a perfect passing of the torch, because you don't want to do a movie like this where you're supposed to like transfer into a new generation without an original cast to help out. You know, Star Wars did a great job with that, even though we all went to go see this movie to see the big 3. You know, we wanted to see Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford, but, you know, we didn't see Mark Hamill until the very end of the movie, and we got most of the screen time with Harrison Ford and then a little bit with Carrie Fisher. But having them there to pass on the torch to this new generation with Oscar Isaac, Daisy Ridley, and John Boyega, it's just, that's how you do it. So doing this now with Ghostbusters is definitely the way to go with this if you want to keep the franchise going into the future, which I'm so for. And there are so many people like on Twitter, on Facebook, on everything that are wanting this movie to happen and wanting it to continue. So doing it this way is perfect. I think if you're going to have them stumble upon the equipment and then be taught by the original Ghostbusters of how to do this job, that is the way to do it, and I'm so here for it. And of course, you know, there's going to be those diehard fans that are just like, you know, Jason Reitman's going to get a lot of flack for it because, you know, you don't want to touch the originals. They already screwed up one remake and one reboot, and we don't need another one. But you got to think, though, Jason was a kid when his father Ivan was directing the first 2, so he, in a sense, is really like the original fan. He was the first fan of Ghostbusters, so he is a fan making this movie for the fans. And I'm pretty sure since he was on the set just about every day with his dad, and since he probably got some tips from his dad on how to, if he were to make this movie, like how to go about doing it, I'm pretty sure he knows exactly what he's doing. You know, I don't think he should get any threats from fans and just like hate talk for him trying to make a perfect sequel to this trilogy of films. You know, I think he knows what he's doing, and that's why they're making this film. And Dan Aykroyd apparently has read the script and he enjoys it. And them saying that the ending is very emotional and happy and like funny, you got that, you almost get that comedic feel that's supposed to be in it. So I really think that this is going to be the movie that we originally wanted to see. But with that being said, you know, I'm not thinking that they had to make this movie to make up for the 2016 version. I just think that this was something that was in their back pocket for a while, and they're just now getting it to work, you know, and it might play off well with the 2016 movie. I mean, sure, it did not do well, but in itself was not a horrible movie. You might think that, and that's fine, but, you know, I don't think the 2016 version should take the blame for being so bad that they had to try to make a true sequel to the original two. I don't think they should do that at all. I think the two should just intertwine with each other as two separate universes of Ghostbusters that exist, and that's fine. You know, you should keep it that way. But until we get more trailers and until the movie actually drops next summer, I'm excited for this, and I hope you guys are too. Ghostbusters is one of my things I grew up with, and I'm so happy to see a true, like, completion of this trilogy and get another installment in the original Ghostbusters timeline. That's just really exciting for me. But that's going to be all for this video, guys. Remember, if you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more of a movie talk styled video program I might be doing with more people or make it into a podcast, or if you'd like to see anything else. And let me know if there's a movie coming out that you want me to talk about. You know, if there's something in the far future, or if it's a movie that's already come out that you'd like me to talk about, let me know. I'd be totally glad to talk about it. But until then, and as always, I will see you guys next time.